campaign has filed arbitration against you. Do you believe you violated your 2016 agreement?
You know, I don't believe that I violated, but I'm going to leave that to the lawyers to sort that out. It's interesting that he's trying to silence me, so what is he trying to hide? What is he afraid of? If he hadn't said anything that was derogatory or demeaning to African Americans and women, why would he go to this extent to try to shut me down?
Should he be afraid of more tapes that you have in your possession?
I think he should be afraid of being exposed as the misogynist, the bigot, and the racist that he is.
Do you have more tapes of the president?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Are you going to release more tapes?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Let's talk about something you talked to Chris Matthews about last night, the Mueller investigation. Have you been interviewed by the special counsel?
I have.
You have? And what sort of questions were they asking you?
That's the extent I can go in discussing that as well. I feel like my hands are tied because, as you know, I do love to communicate about the things that are going on in my life, but unfortunately I can't elaborate.
Have you sat for a grand jury?
I'm not going to be able to comment about that. I don't want this whole thing to be about not being able to comment about that, but I'd be happy to talk about Unhinged, my book that's out today.
Well, you did say to Chris Matthews that you have more tapes that Robert Mueller could be interested in. He might want to call you again. What sort of tapes would he be interested in?
You know, if he calls me, I certainly will participate with anything that he needs. I'll provide him with what he needs, but that's the extent that I can talk about.
But you said he's interested. That's dangling something. Can you give us a little bit more? That's information.
I will just say this, that there's a lot of corruption that went on both in the campaign and in the White House, and I'm going to blow the whistle on all of it. I'm very interested in exposing what was happening behind the scenes, and while, as you saw with Katrina Campion's statement, Katrina Pearson's statement, she really lied one day and then she turned around and lied the next day. That's really the pattern of this organization.
You say corruption.
They have a problem with the truth.
You say corruption, but do you mean coordination? Anything that Robert Mueller would be interested in, whether Donald Trump was coordinating with Russia or he knew about the emails during the campaign, that sort of thing?
I think that he should come clean with the American people. I think that he should be honest about what he did during the campaign and what he continued to do in the White House.
You were instructed, according to your book, to bring up the emails at every point you could at the end of the 2016 campaign.
Correct.
Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes, that was our talker.
Did Donald Trump know about those emails before they came out?
Absolutely.
He knew about them?
Yes.
He knew what was coming out before WikiLeaks released them? You're saying Donald Trump had a back channel?
I didn't say that, you did, but I will say that I am going to expose the corruption that went on in the campaign and in the White House. I'm going to continue to blow the whistle on all of this.
But how did he know about those emails? If he knew about them before they came out, how did he know?
You know, they're going to have a press briefing at 2:30. I'm sure you can have your correspondent ask Sarah.
Is that a question you would ask?
Absolutely. I would ask a lot of questions. I would ask him why during this weekend, the anniversary of Charlottesville, he sent such a small tweet, but he spent all day tweeting about me. He could have condemned in a much stronger term and clearer term that he is not a racist, but he squandered that opportunity. I think that there are a lot of things that the president should come clean about.
Were you ever asked about Roger Stone?
No, I was not.
Did you have any communication with Roger Stone?
I did not.
Could Roger Stone have been somebody that told Donald Trump about emails?
I think that Roger Stone right now is being investigated, and rightfully so. He has been one of those dark, shady characters in Trump world for a very long time, and I think that they have their sights set properly on him.
How worried are folks in the White House, staffers, about this investigation, the Mueller investigation?
They should be very worried.
Are they worried?
Absolutely.
What are they worried about?
Because they have been hiding things from the American people and being very dishonest.
The staffers have been hiding things?
Absolutely.
Like what?
I can't go into it. And you know, Katy, I'm very happy to talk about what's in the book, which is why you invited me here.
And I'm not being evasive. And you were being a bit of a whistleblower as well.
Well, I'm not being evasive. There's 368 wonderful pages of things that I talk about my interesting journey for 15 years with Donald Trump. I'm here with you. You can ask me anything from Unhinged that's out today.
But you're also acting, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a whistleblower for this administration. You're saying that you want to expose Donald Trump for who he is and the corruption that he's perpetrated.
Yes.
And so
you know
wouldn't that dovetail?
And it's not sitting here with you.
It's not?
No, there's a process for that. There is also a legal process for that, but that's not going to happen here in the next 3 minutes that we have left. Feel free to ask me anything about Unhinged.
You also talk about conversations you've had with Jared and Ivanka in this book. Are they concerned about the Mueller investigation?
I'm not certain. You'll have to ask Jared and Ivanka.
The president called you a dog this morning. What's your reaction?
I think that it just shows you that if he would say that publicly, what else would he say about me privately? He has absolutely no respect for women, for African Americans, as evidenced by him instructing the chief of staff to lock me for 2 hours in the Situation Room, to harass me, to threaten me and say that things could get very ugly for me and that there would be damage to my reputation. He is unfit to be in this office and to serve as the President of the United States.
Let's put up the tweet that he sent out. When you give a crazed, crying lowlife a break and give her a job at the White House, I guess it just didn't work out. Good work by General Kelly for quickly firing that dog. We've noted that he's used a derogatory language about women a number of times in the past, especially on Twitter. Dog, women and minorities. Dog, dumb, dumbest man on television. He said that the other day. Low IQ, blood coming out of her wherever, neurotic, ingrates, Miss Piggy, son of a B word, fat, ugly slob. This is on Twitter and in interviews. When you were in the White House, did you see him treat women in a derogatory way?
You know, there were often, and I comment about this in Unhinged, about all of the different names that he had for everyone. He would talk about you, in fact, Katy. I was on the campaign while he harassed and talked about you and wanted to get you kicked out of things. He talked about all of the people around him. If you were in the room with him, you leave the room. For instance, he would call Betsy DeVos Ditzy DeVos. When General Kelly left the room, he had a nickname for him. Anybody that was in his world, because of his small ability to communicate, he would give them these derogatory nicknames. And it just wasn't appropriate.
Was it about women specifically or minorities specifically, or was it everybody?
Well,
did he treat women differently?
He does treat women differently, I think, as evidenced by the lack of female appointees in his administration, the lack of high-level senior advisors, women in his administration and throughout all of the different agencies. He treats them different because he believes that they're beneath him.
Can you detail any moment in the White House where he treated a woman in a different way, or did he harass women? Was there any inappropriate language used about women to their face? Did he comment on appearances or looks? Any moment that you can describe for us?
Well, one of the things that I talked about that just raised such great concern for me was his attacks on the widow of the soldier who died in Niger, as well as the Congresswoman Wilson, when he started to attack her. And then General Kelly got in on the act. They were tag teaming by attacking these African-American women who, in their right mind, would attack a woman who just lost her husband on the front line of serving for this country. That's exactly it. He is not in his right mind. He is mentally impaired and unfit to serve as president.
You write in the book, Trump has an affinity for pretty women. He'd rather have a pretty woman with no experience around than a qualified, less attractive woman. You're talking about Hope Hicks there.
Yes, I am talking about Hope Hicks. I find it very interesting. You know, people say interesting things about me, but Hope Hicks, who had a relationship with a married man, Corey Lewandowski, that's been well documented. Hope Hicks that continued to have relationships with people.
Both of them have denied that, we should point out.
Oh, okay. And then she had a relationship with Rob Porter, a man who is alleged to have been beaten, both of his wives. And this is the person that he brought into the White House to be a communicator for him. And I just think that it's interesting that people haven't really examined the fact that he'd rather have someone who has absolutely no political experience and has no knowledge of politics at all, because she's pretty. And I'm someone who served in 2 tours of duty. This is my 2nd time in the White House, and he calls me a dog.
Did you feel like you were harassed by him in the White House for being a woman? Harassed in a sexual way at any point? Did he harass anybody in a sexual way? Any Me Too moments?
I don't know that I would characterize them as Me Too, but I saw in your book, for instance, where he grabbed you and he kissed you without you welcoming that. He did that very often with women. Anytime he wanted, he's very physical. He would grab women, kiss them unsolicited, anytime, any day.
You also write about the National Enquirer in this book and the president's relationship with David Pecker and how he helped convince you to drop a lawsuit that you were going to file against AMI. Did Donald Trump talk directly to David Pecker?
We actually all talked on a conference call together.
Tell me about that.
You know, he called me to tell me that he learned about the lawsuit after the murder of my brother that I had against the Enquirer, and that David Pecker was a really good, close friend of his, and that he thought we should work it out outside of court because he didn't want to see any harm to David Pecker. He was persistent in making sure that I negotiated a deal with him. And because I respected him, he was my mentor, he's saying that David Pecker is his friend. Ultimately, as you'll see in Unhinged, I would go on to work for AMI in exchange for not filing a lawsuit against them.
So Donald Trump directly talked to David Pecker. This is also something that's come up with Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. In your experience, is it Michael Cohen acting as the go-between here, or is Donald Trump picking up the phone and getting a friend of his to quash negative stories about him?
Donald Trump called David Pecker and myself directly.
I want to talk about Puerto Rico, because you also talk about that in your book. You said that Donald Trump used a derogatory term for Puerto Rico, and so did John Kelly, and that John Kelly was blaming Puerto Rico, saying that they are using the hurricane in order to get the government to fix the power grid. What exactly was the derogatory term?
Well, first of all, I want to leave something to the imagination for people in the book, but I want to talk about, in broader terms, their lack of action in Puerto Rico. Tom Bossert, who was the incredible person inside actually trying to get things done, to get aid to Puerto Rico, was shut down at every single turn. He tried to get the finances, he tried to get food, he tried to get resources. John Kelly was slow to act and slow to okay things. And it just baffled me why they worked so quickly to get resources to Florida after the hurricane, to get resources to Texas, and yet they allowed the people of Puerto Rico to suffer. In fact, the condition of Puerto Rico right now is a direct result of lack of inaction by John Kelly. And it's not for Tom Bossert trying, it's because he blocked them.
Why read derogatory terms to the imagination? We've already heard about S-hole countries. Can you tell us what the term was?
I think that you will see in the book a lot of the derogatory terms.
The book doesn't name the derogatory term for Puerto Rico.
Because I have had to outline all of these disgusting things that he said. And I think that he'll have to answer to the American people exactly what he said and how he said it. Unfortunately, those particular remarks.
But if we don't know what he said and how he said it, how is he going to answer
those remarks were stated actually in a sensitive environment, and I've always been very sensitive. Okay, I've always.
We're getting a last question from the handler, apparently.
Yeah, that's my husband.
Sorry, your husband. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're a little over, but. When there's sensitivity, I had to not be explicit, particularly sensitivity to the classification, but yeah, he said those things.
Just one last question, and then I'll let you go. And this is because this keeps coming up. There's the issue of the credibility thing, and it's just not going away. So I want to give you a chance.
Oh, I think that
to say to the American public why they should believe you and believe what's written in this book.
Anything that you see that's in this book, particularly that's in quotes, can be corroborated. It's verified and well documented. 15 years of knowing Donald Trump and seeing his behavior. This is an insider look into Trump world.
Is it on tape?
You've heard all the quotes. You've heard a lot of them. Trust me. I have every single thing in this book I have verified and documented. And it'll be an interesting look for people.
Omarosa Manigault-Newman, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Katie.
And the book is Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House.
Well, she is
Coming
determined
up, the Trump administration is trying
to destroy Donald Trump. That's one thing for sure. She is determined to destroy his presidency. That's one thing.
Won't be all